Don't waste your time on religious thoughts. It's a nice supplement, but it's not. I mean, not everybody is going to believe in the same thing. Even people sitting next to each other in the pew in the same building. You know, so religion is out. Politics are out, especially now because the state of politics in the Arab world are in such a disarray that you can't tell whether or not politicians are working genuinely or whether there's some sort of motive. You don't know if the system is broken or not. I don't know. I'm Arab. I don't know.
Hell, I feel that way about our
I was just going to say that.
I mean, so those aren't good representations. But when it comes to culture, and you hear somebody from that culture say, "Hey, this is why we do this," then it gives you an idea of the motivation, of the mindset, of the belief system, the actual belief system. We're not talking about God in the sky sitting on a throne waiting to judge. We're talking about the reason why people act and do and say the things they do. Mm-hmm. And the arts are the cleanest, most pure window for you to actually see that.
They are. However you come to them. However you come to them. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, so I know that now I've pulled you into a bunch of stuff with teaching dancers and helping them understand the music from your standpoint. And you don't know this. Here, let me clue you in. But there are a lot of workshops and stuff that go on in the dance community that are kind of a la carte, one-off by various musicians, usually percussionists. Occasionally, a different musician will teach a workshop, but there's never anything sustained. I've taken millions of them over the years, and it's tough to assimilate that when it's just these, little hodgepodge hour-long things by various musicians. So Michael is now teaching consistently these courses, Arab music for dancers, and they're 5-week-long courses. Each course is 5 weeks long, and it focuses on a piece of music. And because he's a conductor and because he's a multi-instrumentalist, he's got a different way of looking at it than just someone who plays one instrument or just has you for an hour. And so he's been teaching these courses. You're on round 2 now, I guess. Mm-hmm. So yeah. And it's fantastic. And even though a lot of the dancers are like, whoa, it's really tricky because, he's a musician. And so he uses musician language that a lot of us aren't familiar with. But that's the point. All musicians do that when they're talking about music. They've got their way of communicating that is familiar to them. And that's why it's important to have a sustained conversation about it, preferably with the same individual, because then you start noticing the similarities across pieces of music. Right. You start noticing, oh, he used that word before. I think I get what he means. It starts coming together. And so before you met me and I started dragging you into all of that, had you done much? Like, what were the communication with dancers other than what piece of music do you want, or was it even nothing? Okay. So I'll take full credit for that. I was just trying to find them. Just kidding. But this is a big deal. These, and I'm going to keep using the word sustained conversations between dancers and musicians. This, I feel like, is something that's been missing, and I'm super excited about anything that we can form in the future that will keep that going, because I think for myself, as long as I've been involved in this, I can tell that's a missing piece. I can feel things filling in just from that. And so to be able to take dancers at an earlier point in their journey and introduce them to that, I think can be huge.
You'll find a lot of dance students that just don't know how to listen. Mm-hmm. And that's made harder. Like, they'll know what they like. We're not saying that they're tone deaf or anything, but they're listening to something foreign. So the idea is you have to have conversations that make them familiar with how it works. And it's not going to happen in just one sitting. It has to happen through consistency and examples. Some people might talk about Arab music and associate things with emotions, and that's fine but it's not accurate because Arab music doesn't function that way. Not to say that it's not emotional, but that it is subjective. What makes, what's good for the goose is good for the gander doesn't really apply in this situation. Everybody's going to take their own emotion and interpret it the way they want to interpret it. So we don't have these conversations. It's much more important to have the conversation of, you're listening to this piece of music. Why don't you listen to when this phrase ends and when it starts, or when it starts and when it ends. And then see how many phrases come together. Now take a look at the bigger picture. And why are you doing this? So that when you are dancing, you're not simply memorizing an entire piece with all the repeats, but you're understanding a structure, which allows you, which frees up your mind to think more about what you're going to do in the moment. Because that's how Arab music works. Nobody goes in and with a whole sheet of music and pre-writes out every ornament. That's done on the spot. Now you'll hear certain musicians, even big-time musicians, when they go and they play improvs, if you listen to enough of their stuff, you'll start to identify them with their sound. And you'll start to notice some of the same licks and patterns and things that they do. And they do it because every musician has their bags of tricks and they have their vocabulary. And, when you're on the road and you're doing things, sometimes it's just easier to just kind of piece Legos together that you already have in your bag.
Ditto dancers.
Yeah.
Carry on. Yes.
Yeah. But, it's easier to do that when you have an idea of what you're doing. It's easier for a dancer to dance when they have an idea of what they're listening for. When does the